Okay, here we go with a look at the Tapco USA Vertical Grip. In this video, I'm going to show you how I like to modify this grip to better suit my setup. Now, the vertical grip is actually very long. It's probably one of the longer vertical grips that I'm aware of, or at least that I've tried. And they make a shorter one, but I believe it's something like half of that length. So this one here, it's got more than I need. If it was halfway, it'd be less than I need. So I kind of feel like I want like a 3/4 or maybe a 2/3 grip. Now, if you do what Nothing Fancy did and you just hacksaw part of it off, well then, if you start cutting away this empty material here, your plug no longer fits. And I actually like that finished look of how the vertical grip looks with the plug in it. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it to the length that I want, and then I'm going to remove some of this material in here, those little stop points, so that this doesn't overextend in. And hopefully when I'm done, I'll end up with a vertical grip that's just a little shorter, not as short as the stubby, but not as long as the full length, and I'll still be able to use this plug. I'll be doing that with my old trusty Black & Decker rotary tool. So I need to decide where I want to cut it at. I'm going to have a little bit of a length here too. So I'm going to say right about there. That's what I want to cut off. Right here. Now, when you're using a rotary tool on polymer or plastic, it spins so fast that it tends to just melt the plastic instead of cut it. It gums up your cutter. So you want to take it as slowly as you can. And so I don't lose my place, I'm going to use a bit of painter's tape to mark the grip where I want it to be. You can always cut more off later, so kind of start kind of low. That way if you want to take off more, you can always take more off, but once you cut too much off, well, you're going to have to buy another grip or just live with your own disappointment. So let's see here. You can see there's a little bit hanging off, but with this added piece of rubber, I think that's going to put me where I want to be. But, you know, I'm going to take my own advice here. I'm going to go just a little lower. I think this would be okay, but I think I'm just going to move my line down just a little bit lower because I can always take more off. And I'd rather have to take more off than live with the regret of wishing I would have left more on. Alright, so there's a nice line. Alright, so I'm going to try and cut following these grooves here. I'm going to cut in this groove, and I'm going to try to make this bottom edge here of this little gripping texture. I'm going to try and make that the new bottom edge of my grip. So here we go. Alright, now you can see that I cut under my line. I did that on purpose because I would like to, from here, take some sandpaper and finish this up real nice with some sandpaper here, some automotive sandpaper. I'll start with something high, or something like low, aggressive, like 60 or 80 grit, and then I'll take it all the way up to like 2,000 sandpaper, and as many steps as I can between there, whatever I've got. So let's get some sandpaper and show you how I polish up this bottom edge. Alright, so this is what I could dig up, some 60 grit lay it flat here. I'm going to take and go across the flat surface of the sandpaper on the bench, and then I will move to an 80 grit. Then I'll go to a 150 grit. If I would have had some 220, I would have gone to that, but then I'm going to go to an 800 grit. Get some oil on the bottom edge here and clean that up. And it should finish really nicely. So this will kind of uniform everything on this flat surface here. So see, it's starting to take some material off there. Try and use different parts of the sandpaper. If you stay in one place, you're just going to wear that piece of sandpaper out. Alright, so you can see I've still got kind of a high spot here. I'm going to keep working that area, and then once I've got that all kind of uniform, I'm going to go up to the next grit. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and move up to the 80 grit. Starting to make those lines in there a little finer. If you go in the same direction, it's going to look a little more uniform when you're done. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to take and keep going back and forth a long ways with the wide part of the grip here. Alright, I'm going to go to some 150. Starting to clean those lines up a little bit there. Make them a little finer and finer. Okay, let's go ahead and jump up to our 800. Like I said, I would have preferred to have some 220 to go to, or some 180, but this is what I had in the drawer, so that's what I'll just go ahead and use. Let's pull the tape off and see how the line looks. Yeah, that doesn't look bad. Take our edge off a little bit. Take a little bit of rem oil here on a Q-tip. And then as you touch the oil up, it's going to bring that shine back to the surface of your polymer here. So it's cleaned up in here. Get it dried off. Alright, and so that's what the underside looks now that we've got it all polished up with that finer sandpaper. You really can't see the sanding marks in it once you get up to that finer sandpaper. It almost passes as factory quality at this point. Alright, so we've got the underside cut, and probably to the length I think I want it. With that extra little bit of rubber down here, I think it's going to fill in the rest of my hand pretty nicely. And see, there's only a little bit of space left for this to fit into. So as it fits there, well, that's where your last little bit of dimension was. Now, you could go one of two ways. You could, if you really wanted to, you could take and follow one of these lines and cut your plug. But you can see there's not much in there. It's about that much, as opposed to an inch. It's more like a half of an inch, or actually this is probably more like an inch and a half, inch and a quarter. I mean, it really drastically reduces how much is sticking in. I'd like it to go from this much to that much. So what I'm going to do from there is trim some of this material out here. And I'm going to try using a cutter here to remove the bulk of the material. Now, even with a cutter like this, with this polymer, it's really going to more melt than cut if you go too fast. If you go too aggressively, you want to just gently, slowly take material away. So let's see how far I want to be in this thing. I want to be about like that, and so I can see that I want to be maybe up to about this point here. That's all the higher I want to go and remove material, and that should allow for this to press up in there and finish off looking about like that. So let's go ahead and start removing some of this material. Okay, so you can see the first bit of material that I've removed there. It's not going to finish as nicely as this edge did down here, but you're really never going to see it until you pull your plug out, and the plug's probably going to cover up most of my edge here, but if I had to have a nice edge, I'd rather it be on this underside here than way up in here where the plug is going to be. Removing this material and having this plug fit all the way up in here is going to greatly reduce what you could put in this grip storage, but you know, I'd rather have the rubber finished end down there than have something open like the Magpul grips. So let me go ahead and start it on the next side. I'll probably switch out these bits and then put a sand drum on it and kind of try and finish that up a little nicer. But I wanted to make sure that I got all of the material. You can see I took it down into the surface here some too, because I didn't want any of this ridge to obstruct this plug. I wanted it to fit nice. You don't want to take so much material that it's going to fit in sloppy and then want to fall out. You want it to press in firmly, but you don't want to have to fight it with this whatever would have been left from that ridge. Let's go to the other side here. Alright, so you can see I removed a lot of that material there. I'm hoping that that's deep enough into it that it's going to allow for the plug to go in. I'm just going to finish up with some sandpaper here. This is a little drum. I don't really want to take a lot more material out and make it too wide of an opening, but I just want to kind of polish this up just a little bit, clean that up. But I think that that's probably going to accommodate that plug there. You want to be careful when you're using a cutter and then with the sandpaper that you don't go through the edge here. It's not that thick. It would be easy to stay in one spot too long and then come through the side of your grip and have destroyed your work. So I'm just going to try and clean this up a little bit in here. Okay, so you can see how that cleaned up in there. Like I said, it's not as nice as this bottom edge is going to turn out, but I think it's alright. So I might go ahead and take some 150 or whatever this was here in here. Now I'm not going to be able to polish this up as nicely, even though I'm going through some of these grits. It's just going to give it just a little more of a finish to it. You can see I've still got a lot of very deep lines in there. But let's see if my plug fits. There's a little bit of a gap there, so I'm wondering if Alright, so I'm wondering if this edge here with it kind of beveled like it is, it's not like straight square, I'm wondering if that might be just holding it back a little bit. So I'm going to round this inside edge off just a little bit. Alright, and there it is, all cleaned up and put together. You can see it fills my hand enough, but it's not as long. You know, we took that much length off of there. So I feel like it looks a little more like a normal standard size, and it's got that nice rubber plug still in the bottom to finish it off. I know Tapco is probably not as popular as it once was when it first came out, but you know, this is probably still one of my favorite vertical grips. I like the oval shape, I like the texturing ribs on it, and I like the fact that it's got this rubber plug in there. I have reduced what I can store in here, but I do have some storage left in there, and it's just a nice vertical grip, and now at a length that I like. So alright, well, there is a close look at the modification of a Tapco vertical grip to make it a shorter length and still have it longer than the stubby length. It's a big world out there, and we're bound to run into a shady situation. Until then, keep your gear on you.